Statement of financial position. This is chapter 2 of our intermediate 3. Okay. Okay, let's start na. So here we'll basic ng statement of financial position. Alam kong you have heard it. Alam kong alam nyo ang current and non-current, pero i-reviewin natin. Sa PDF file or sa inyong book, meron siyang summary ng mga how to classify each line item. So, meron din naman ako dito, pero hindi lahat. Okay? So let's start. Statement of financial position. It tells you the financial position. Ano na ang status ng company with regards to their assets, liabilities, and equity. Okay? It also shows the liquidity, solvency, and the need of the entity for additional financing. Madaling intindihin yung entity for additional financing. Pero yung liquidity, profitability, solvency, ano ba siya? Liquidity is actually the ability of the company to meet currently maturing obligations. May pambayad ka ba? Okay? You are very liquid if you can meet the currently maturing obligations and still have so much left. Very liquid. Okay? And solvency, you have availability of cash over the longer term to meet maturing obligations. Ito naman, pagkatapos mabayaran ng iyong current, may pambayad ka ba ng uh, obligations that are longer in term or the non-current obligations. Okay? You can say that you're solvent if you still have. Okay? Next, you have current and non-current distinction. Sabi sa standard, kailangan you classify current and non-current assets and liabilities. Okay? This is to show that you fairly present it, and sabi nga, the fair presentation tells you that based on liquidity, you can classify them in increasing or decreasing liquidity. Okay? Next, you have composition of the financial position. So you have assets, liabilities, and equity. Isa-isahin natin. Let's start with assets. Assets are actually your present economic resource controlled by the entity as a result of past events. Medyo alam ko sawan-sawa na kayo sa definition yan, but we have to isa-isahin. Present economic resources, ibig sabihin, it will bring economic benefits because resource mo yan. Okay? Controlled by the entity, kontrolado mo yung asset. Hindi pwedeng nasa iyo yung asset pero hindi mo magalaw yung cash, hindi mo magalaw yung AR kasi iba controlled by a third party. So yun, hindi mo siya asset. Okay? As a result of past events, only past events can materialize assets. Okay? Paano pag future events? Okay? Pag future events, let's stick with the definition of the standard. Ibig sabihin, if the asset will be acquired by a future event, hindi pa siya asset mo. Kailangan it qualifies with the definition of assets. Ano? Okay? AKA, assets are the properties owned by the business. Okay? So, let's classify it to current assets. Ano po yung current assets? Current assets are actually cash and cash equivalent, not restricted to settle unless, okay? So, ito'y unless the assets. So, ibig sabihin, cash and cash equivalent that are unrestricted. Okay? Hindi daw siya current asset kung siya ay restricted to pay a liability for more than 12 months. Then, the entity holds the asset primarily for the purpose of trading. Paano pag yung inventory kaya pa ng more than 12 months after the reporting, more than 24 months after the reporting period? Inventory will always be held for trading. Kaya, inventory is always current assets. Okay? Then expects to realize asset within 12 months after the reporting period. and entity expects to realize the asset or intends to sell or consume it within the entity's normal operating cycle. Ma'am, magkaiba ba ang 12 months after the reporting period and the entity's normal operating cycle? Remember that not all businesses have the same normal operating cycle. Okay? Remember that. So, if the problem does not state yung normal operating cycle nila, by default, standard says 12 months. Okay? So, remember also na an asset is still current if it will be expected to be realized uh, 12 months after the reporting period. So, kung reporting period was December 2020 and you're still going to have an asset by 2021, November 2021, it's still current. Okay? So, ganun lang yun. Cash and cash equivalent. So, review lang. So, ano ba yung cash and cash equivalent? They are yung uh, cash and cash equivalent, sila lang daw ay current if they are unrestricted. Okay? Cash equivalents, they are highly liquid investments that are convertible into cash. So, like cheque. Okay? Dapat ang maturity niya ay 3 months or less from the date of acquisition. So, if you have acquired it bilang ka ng 3 months, pagpasok siya sa 3 months, from the date of acquisition, magmamature na siya. Date of acquisition, magmamature siya in 3 months. Cash equivalent siya. Pero pag lumampas sa maturity niya ng 3 months, hindi siya cash equivalent. Ma'am, paano pag 2 months lang eh? Kaya nga 3 months or less. So, ibig sabihin, cash equivalent pa rin siya. Okay? Examples of cash equivalents. Yan. We have 3-month BSP treasury bill purchased 3 months before date of maturity, time deposit, and money market instrument. Okay. Next, we have financial asset held for trading. So these are actually you have purchased these securities with the intent of selling them in the near term or very soon to generate short-term gains or profits. So within 12 months or even after 12 months after the reporting period. Okay. So ito yung specific acquired principally for the purpose of selling it. So, trading pa rin siya. So, as we all know, if it is held for trading, it is current. Initial recognition, there is actually evidence of recent actual pattern of short-term profit making. Panandali ang mag-generate lang siya ng income for you. So, it's a financial asset held for trading. It's current. And derivative, designated, except when it is designated as effective hedging instrument if the derivative is actually used to hedge, hindi siya current. Okay? Next, expected to be realized within 12 months. So, ano ba yun? Short-term non-trade receivables. They are actually claims arising from sources other than the sale. So, kasi kapag related sa sale or revenues, ang tawag sa kanya trade and other receivables. Pero kapag hindi siya related sa sales, let's say for example, nagbenta ka ng lupa, ikaw ay grocery store, yung pinagbentahan mo ng lupa, utang muna or installment, ang tawag dun short-term non-trade receivable. So, yun. Okay? Next, realized, sold, or consumed. So, realized, sold, and consumed, usually, trade receivable siya. Yun explain ko kanina. Inventories, and prepayments. Prepaid rent, prepaid insurance, yung mga prepaid. Kasi, as time goes by, nakukonsume mo yung mga prepayments. So, alam nyo yan because of the adjusting entries ng basic accounting. Okay? You have current assets because they are expected to be realized, sold, or consumed within the normal operating cycle or 1 year, whichever is longer. Okay? Current assets sila. Next, operating cycle. So, ano ba yung operating cycle? This is actually the time between the acquisition of the assets into realization of cash and cash equivalents. So, from asset, pagbili mo ng asset hanggang sa naipagbenta mo siya, napakinabangan mo siya hanggang sa siya maging cash. So, ma'am, paano kapag nasa AR stage pa lang siya or utang pa lang siya sa akin, hindi pa tapos ang operating cycle niya? Pag nagbayad na pag na-convert na siya into cash, that's the only time na siya ay magiging, that's the only time na nakompleto ang operating cycle mo. If your operating cycle would last up to 1 year, okay, which is usually the case for merchandising business, it's good. But for a manufacturing business, like for example cars, medyo mahaba ang kanilang operating cycle kasi ang cars is not actually mabilis ang mabenta. Okay, from the moment na siya'y nagawa hanggang siya'y mabenta, it usually takes about 2 years. Okay, so yun ang normal operating cycle niya. Can you say that because umabot siya ng 2 years, it's non-current na agad? Hindi po. Okay, you have to make sure that operating cycle is the normal operating cycle of that specific business. Okay, yan. Yun na yung in-explain ko. Okay. Next, we have presentation of current assets. So, alam naman natin na kaya si cash ang una is because in order of liquidity. Easily convertible into cash. Cash na siya. Then, you have financial assets at FBPL, trade, and other receivables, inventories, prepaid expenses. Yan. Mga financial assets at FVPL, actually, it's easily convertible into cash kasi kunwari, disposal mo lang investment. May pera ka na. Okay? So, yun. Untrade and other receivables, mahirap kasing singilin ang nakakautang sa iyo kasi marami silang dahilan. Pero ang financial assets, pagbenta mo siya sa financial institution, pagbenta mo siya sa financial market, may pera ka na agad. Okay? So, yun. Non-current assets. Alam natin na ang non-current assets is actually residual ang definition. That's all other assets not classified as current. Okay? PPE, long-term investments, intangible assets, and other non-current assets. So, isa-isahin natin. Property, plant, and equipment. You have past 16. They are tangible assets, which are held by an entity for the use in production, supply, and rental administrative. So you have production 1, supply 2, rental 3, administrative purposes 4. You have 4 uses of PPE and are expected to be used during more than one period. Okay? So, yan yung PPE, more than one period siya. So, examples, land improvements, building, machinery, furnitures and fixtures, office equipment, and bearer plants. So, when you discuss agriculture, if you have yung biological assets, you remember that the bearer plants with the new standard is actually property, plant, and equipment. Ano po yung bearer plant? Yung namumunga. Okay? So, yun. Biruin mo yung puno. Ay, property, plant, and equipment. I remember the days nung ako ang college. College pa lang ako nun. When we joked about shifting, kasi naabutan namin yung nagpalit ng standard si biological asset to the bearer plants. Diyos ko po, ang naitawa namin. You have long-term investment. These are actually assets held by an entity for the accretion of wealth. Okay? It's either through capital distribution, interest, royalties, dividends, rentals, and other benefits in investing. Okay? So, accretion of wealth, nanganganak ng pera, nanganganak ng passive income, tax. Okay? Long-term investments are actually examples, investments in shares and bonds, subsidiaries, associates, funds such as sinking fund, investment property, cash surrender value of life insurance policy, and investment in joint venture. These are all intermediate accounting 1. So, when dealing with problems with financial position, you have to recall your intermediate accounting 1. Okay? Kaya nga parang I'll propose kay Sir Murmur that our scope for the finals will just be short because it's actually short pero comprehensive kasi you have to study intermediate accounting 1 again. Pero review lang. Huwag mo naman dibdibin. Okay? Intangible assets. So, ni-lecture ko ito sa inyo nung first time nyo akong nakita. These are identifiable non-monetary asset without physical substance. So, ito yung category niya, controlled by the entity, will result to future economic benefits, yan, due to past event. So, includes patent, trademark, franchise, computer software, and copyright. Okay? I think it's clear naman sa inyo if naalala nyo, tinuturo ko yan. Kung hindi kayo matend nun tinuro ko yan. Okay, next we have other non-current assets. Wala siyang mafitan doon sa lahat ng diniscuss. Kaya, ang tawag sa kanya is other non-current assets. Ganun siya ka-special. Okay, we have liabilities. So, defined as present obligation of an entity to transfer an economic resource as a result of past events. Pwedeng future, tawag, contingency. Okay? Remember the definition. If it doesn't satisfy all of it, hindi siya liability. Okay? Current liabilities. Ito po yung mga conditions niya. Una, it is expected to be settled within the normal operating cycle of the entity. Para siyang current asset. 2, it's primarily held for trading. Okay? Utang in relation to business, in the normal course of business. Okay? Due to be settled within 12 months after the reporting period. So, parang assets lang din. And does not have an unconditional right to defer settlement of the liability for at least 12 months after the reporting period. We have discussed this in intermediate 2. Okay? You don't have the unconditional right to defer settlement. So, dahil hindi mo na mapigilan, sinisingil ka na, current liabilities na yun. Okay, examples, you have trade payables and accruals for employee. Why? Because they're related to the normal business norm in the course of business, in the normal operations of the business. Then you have obligations that are not settled as part of the normal operating cycle but are due within 12 months. So this is actually the current portion of long-term debt. Okay, financial liabilities held for trading. Basta siya held for trading, it's current liabilities. Long-term debt currently maturing, it is current if, una, the original term was for a period of 12 months, and this one, I have discussed this, agreement to refinance or to reschedule payment on a long-term basis completed after, remember this, yung refinancing for the liability happened after the reporting period but before the financial statements are authorized for issue. So, nagkakaroon ng tawag nini, kahit siya refinance, yung pagkatao niya current pa rin. Why? Because it happened after the end of the reporting period but before the financial statements are authorized for issue. Ibig sabihin, if nangyari siya before the end of the reporting period, will it be non-current? Yes. Okay. Discretion to refinance. If the entity has a discretion to refinance, nagiging non-current siya. Okay? Dapat lang ang discretion ay nasa entity. Remember that because there are certain problems na napaka-tricky ang question, wala pala kay entity yung discretion to refinance, ang sinagot mo na agad is non-current siya. Okay? Kaya nagkakamali. So, you have to remember na kaninong discretion, baka na kay third party. Pag na kay third party ang discretion, current siya. Okay? Pero pag na kay entity ang discretion to refinance, nagiging non-current siya. Okay? After, at least 12 months after the reporting period. Covenants, yan. Kahit sa oblikon nyo, you can relate this na if the contract or the obligation is breached, nagiging demandable na agad yung liability or the obligation itself. It's the same with the liability. The liability becomes payable on demand if the covenant is breached. Ano ba yung covenant? It's the attached borrowing agreements. So, pag sinabi ng nagpahiram sa iyo, bawal mo to gawin at ginawa mo, breach contract. demandable for payment. Okay? Also, it is non-current. It's the same with refinancing. Ang covenant will become non-current if the lender agreed on or before the end of the reporting period to provide a grace period or before the end of the reporting period. Pero siya ay nagiging current or it will stay current if the lender has agreed to refinance it or to provide a grace period for the covenant to be para maayos mo yung covenant after the end of the reporting period, but before the statements are authorized for issue. Okay. Is it clear? So, yun. Presentation of current liabilities. We have line items, trade and other payables, current provisions, short-term borrowings, current portion of long-term debt, current tax liability. Okay, non-current liabilities. This is residual definition. Includes non-current portion of long-term debt, lease, deferred tax, long-term obligations to entity officers, and long-term deferred revenues. Equity. Okay, in your book, it was provided about nag-provide sila ng review or summary about contingent liabilities and contingent assets. Okay? We have discussed it naman in intermediate 2. I will be providing the summary. Okay? Kung kailan siya probable, possible, kailan siya contingent, kailan siya provision. Okay? Next, we have equity, residual interest in the assets of the entity after deducting all of the liabilities. So, actually, they are the net assets. Pwede siyang owner's equity, partner's equity, and shareholder's equity. I don't need to... this is very fresh for you. Itong equity, shareholder's equity. Kasi katatapos lang natin yung intermediate 2 na libro na sabi nyo nga is yes, nakatapos din na isang libro. Okay? I was hoping to finish intermediate 3 pero because of extraordinary times, hindi ko na ipipilit na tapusin ang librong yun. Okay? Listing of line items is not exclusive. Okay? Hindi lang yung provided line items ang tawag din ang pwede mong ilagay. Kumbaga, sabi nga ng standard, judgment is needed in presenting separate line items if sa tingin mo, yung additional line item will not fall sa basic or sa default line items at meron siyang sariling dapat line item for understandability, relevance, and fair presentation, gawin na siyang additional line item. And judgment is needed para sa nature and liquidity of assets, functions of assets, amount, nature, and timing of liabilities. Okay? Forms of statement of financial position. Syempre, wala pa ring prescribed form. Pwede kang gumamit ng ng report and account form. So, anong hitsura? So, ito po, unang picture. Ito po yung report form. Ang palatandaan ko siya dyan is isang diretso lang siya. Okay? So, you have the title, the name, kailan siya, anong date na covered niya. So, you have current assets. Kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga sinabing line items, yun lang yun. Ma'am, ang laman, nasa notes siya. Ito, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nasa notes to financial statements. Then, we have non-current. Then, we have current, non-current, and shareholders' equity. And, remember the notes. Yan. For account form, ito ay para makita mong balance ang total assets and total liabilities and equity. So, usually, there are problems in the book na nakaganto. There are problems man na naka-straight line and naka-report form. So, yun. So, it's the same. We have the assets, liabilities, and equity, current assets, non-current assets, liab, non-current liab, equity. So, this is actually the accounting equation. Assets is equal to liabilities plus equity. Balance dapat. Okay? Again, there's no prescribed form. So, pwede kang gumamit ng report form or account form. And that ends my discussion. Thank you so much for listening if you have listened. Okay? All I wanted is for you to understand the lesson. Kahit Hindi na ako makapagkwento. Okay lang yan. Okay, so I'll see you again sa sunod na lesson. Bye!